Hi guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Mclaren Senna GTR Modeling series. In the last episode, we worked on modeling the car's doors. Today, we'll focus on the car's roof. As always, I'll keep things clear and easy to follow, so don't forget to like and follow the channel to not miss the next episodes. This said, let's get back to our model. Here is what we made in the previous episodes. And as I mentioned earlier, today we're going to make all the car's roof. The first thing we'll have to do is to get the border of the inner part of our car, so select these two objects and start highlighting these borders. Once you did that, use Shift+D to duplicate it and P to separate it to a new object, so that now we can start working on the shape of our roof. Select the objects we just made and use Ctrl+J to merge them together. Then select all with A and press M and by distance to merge intersected vertices. After that, I just used loop tools to easily manage my geometry. For this car, we'll start by modeling a sort of basic mesh for the roof, and then we'll add all the details we need. Start by selecting this edge loop, then extrude it up to match the car's height. Once you did that, pick these vertices and align them with this line on our blueprint. And after that, repeat the same process for top view. On this corner, I connected these two vertices using J, then deleted these two to make my geometry follow the shape of the car's window smoothly. Now that we have the base shape of the car's windows, place your 3D cursor on this vertex and set it as a pivot point here on top of the screen. Now select these vertices, duplicate them, and press S+Y+0 to align them with the center of the car. After doing that, isolate the vertices we just created and adjust them to fit the blueprint. Then connect these vertices, use the space loop tool to distance them, and adjust them from side view to form a smooth curve. And while you do this, lower these vertices to fill empty gaps. Now let's close the car's windshield. First, connect the vertices using F. Then press Ctrl+R to add 7 vertices to the edge. After that, highlight this section and press Ctrl+F and use grid fill. Then simply use loop tools to clean up the topology. To give some roundness to the car's roof, isolate the last edge of this section and curve it around the Z-axis. Then use loop tools again to smooth out the curves even more. After that, duplicate these vertices and align them with the car's center. Then connect these two vertices together using F and isolate these to adjust them along the Z-axis. Now, to close this part of the roof while maintaining the slight curve we created earlier, we'll have to duplicate these 7 vertices to position them roughly at the other side of the square we're trying to fill. Use a little bit of loop tools to smooth out the shape of the curve, and then fill this hole by selecting the borders and using grid fill. And again, don't forget to use loop tools to smooth out the curves of the model. Now we'll start to divide our model into separate pieces, starting from separating the car's window from the rest of the roof. To do this, first select the edge that separates the 2 sections and press V. Then separate the window into a new object by selecting it with L, pressing P, and choosing by selection. Now we're able to add some loop cuts to this part of the model, and we can also align this edge loop to match the lower border of the car's roof. Make sure to maintain smooth topology during this process by using loop tools to help yourself. Once you're finished with this, select these edges and separate them again using V. Then press G twice to slide one side in and create some distance between these parts. And make sure to create some distance here too, so that now we can create some auxiliary faces to give the parts of our vehicle the impression of thickness. To do this, select one of the borders of the part you want to thicken, then press E to extrude, right-click to keep their position, and Alt+S to move each vertex along its normal. Once you've done this, apply a bevel to the corner you just created to sharpen it, and then repeat the process for the rest of the roof. Now we can pass on separating the windshield from the rest. To do this, we'll need to modify our model's topology a little bit in order to separate this part correctly. We're going to modify the position of these edges. Align them with the upper part of the windshield, but make sure to move each vertex by pressing G twice to avoid altering the shape of the model. And obviously use loop tools to smooth out the shape. Finally, separate the windshield from the rest of the model by selecting it in edit mode and pressing P, then by selection. Then make sure to outline the glass part of the model with these vertices, as we'll need this for texturing the car later. Now let's focus on defining the shape of this part of the car, where the door attaches to the body and rotates when opening. First of all, align these edges to fit our blueprint. Then create a straight line that closes this little triangle, and don't forget to handle any topology-related problems. At this point, separate this part to a new object. Then make sure to create some distance between these sections of the model and start creating some auxiliary faces, like we did earlier, to give the illusion of thickness. And also repeat the same process with this part here. Make sure to select all of these edges, then separate them using V and create some distance. Once you did that, add some more back faces. Here we need to adjust this part from top view as this line doesn't align with our blueprint. During this operation, make sure to pay particular attention as it's really easy to mess things up. Now we also need to fix the shape of the car's window. The easiest way to do this is to just isolate the window by hiding everything else and using loop tools to smooth out the shape of the curves. And while doing this, you'll also need to slightly adjust the shape of the model as you see on screen. Finally, we can focus on extending our roof backwards, and we'll start by duplicating the borders of our model. Select all of these objects, then make sure to select all of the back borders and separate them to new objects. And now pick these objects you just created and merge them together. After that, pick these vertices and merge them too. And now we're ready to start modeling the back of the roof. We'll start from this corner right here. Go into side view and start outlining this part of the blueprint, always making sure to maintain the same number of edges on opposite sides. Then repeat the same process from top view and use loop tool to smooth out the shape of this curve. And here adjust the position of these vertices to follow the shape of the car. Now to get the same number of edges on the other side of this part, simply duplicate these vertices and position them onto this line. Then simply adjust the vertices on the Z-axis too. Finally, connect these two vertices, add a vertex in between them. Do the same on the other side and fill in this shape. Also make sure to adjust your normals pressing Shift+N. Now we can start focusing on this part of the car. We're going to adopt a similar approach to the one we used earlier. Simply select these vertices and extrude them back, then adjust their position to fit the blueprint. After that, add 4 loop cuts here and use your 3D cursor to align each of them to our existing geometry on the X-axis. Then bring these vertices down and use loop tools to smooth this shape. But also don't forget to bring some of these vertices down too. Otherwise, we won't achieve our desired shape. We'll need to create some faces here too. Just use the same method we used earlier. And don't forget to use loop tools to make our car look more aesthetically pleasing. After that, we can add some auxiliary faces to our roof parts to give them some thickness and make them look better. But make sure to create some distance between them. And to apply bevels to all sharp corners. And now it's time to model this part here where there's going to be the fuel gauge. Start by extruding this vertex here. Then adjust its position on the Y-axis and duplicate these vertices above it. Now connect these vertices on one side and merge these on the other one. After that, add 9 vertices to this edge and align them with our blueprint. Actually, these vertices should be a little bit lower, so bring them down a bit and adjust them as needed. Now that we have an outline of this part of the car, let's fill it in. Connect these vertices and add 2 more in between. Then select this part and use grid fill. Then simply repeat the process by filling faces manually as shown on screen. And finally, add some back faces to give the illusion of thickness. And don't forget to adjust the normals by pressing Shift+N. Now that this part is done, we can fill this gap by selecting the vertices, pressing G twice, then using Alt to move them across their direction. We can now pass on modeling the rear window. First of all, select the borders, duplicate them, and separate them to a new object. Then merge these 2 vertices and delete this part as we won't need it for now. After that, we can start outlining the rest of the rear window. Start by duplicating this vertex and positioning it at this corner. Then connect it with this vertex and extrude to outline the rest of this border. Now extrude this and move it on the X-axis to match the other side of the rear mirror, then adjust it on the Z-axis to match the blueprint. You can position it at the same height as this vertex here using your 3D cursor. And also you can remove this vertex to adjust the height of this too. After doing that, extrude this again to continue outlining the border, then duplicate these vertices and use them to outline the rest. And obviously, don't forget to adjust their height too. Now let's fill this in. Add 4 vertices to this edge, then connect these ones and repeat the same operation. Then simply select these and fill them in, making sure to recalculate the normals using Shift+N. Once everything is filled, use loop tools to smooth the mirror shape and improve our topology. And also add a loop cut here to make everything look better. You can see that some curves of this part of the car don't look quite right. To fix that, we'll use a matte cap, which will help us detect imperfections. To apply it, press this little arrow in the top right corner of the screen, then click here and select the metallic red matte cap. After that, you should be able to notice some little imperfections, so go ahead and fix them. And after that, we can create some more back faces to give the illusion of thickness. First of all, create some gap between the rest of the car. Then just make sure that the borders of the rear mirror have bevels applied on them. Then press E and Alt+S to create them. Finally, let's model the air intake on top of the car. First of all, you'll need to delete the back face on these areas here. After that, pick this vertex here, go on side view and outline the shape of the air intake. And once you do it on the front, do the same from the back. Do the same with this vertex here, following the shape of our blueprint. And make sure to keep the vertices at the correct height. Change the direction of this edge here, separating this vertex from the rest of the model with V, then connect it with another vertex using M, then at last. And now that we have a sort of outline of our air intake, we can separate it from the rear mirror to merge it with the rest of the car. So after separating it, use Ctrl+J to join it with this part of the roof. And make sure to merge these vertices. Now let's fill this in. Add some vertices between these edges with Shift+R. Then start filling faces from here. Add 2 more vertices on this edge and continue filling faces. Then connect these ones and add another 2 vertices between them. After that, add a loop cut here, adjust this vertex to follow the correct shape, and continue filling faces on this part. Now delete this edge here, as we'll need to add a vertex on this to give the correct shape to our air intake. And finally, to complete the shape of this part, just add 3 more vertices on this edge, 2 on this one, and fill everything. Don't forget to create some back faces here. And to obviously improve the topology of this air intake using loop tools. Now that we have the base shape of the air intake, we can make some adjustments to make it look better. First of all, select these vertices and move them down a bit using G twice. Then select the entire edge loop, bevel it with Ctrl+B, and apply bevels again, but using our mean bevel weight. After that, apply some bevel weight to these edges too. And bring these faces down a bit using Alt+S. And to give some thickness to the air intake, create some kind of fake borders extruding these faces. And extrude them back too to make them look better. The next thing we need to do now is model the fuel gauge and another thing on the other part of the car. But to do that, we'll have to apply the mirror modifier. First of all, you'll have to separate this part to a new object pressing L, then P. And after doing that, you'll have to apply the mirror modifier by hovering on it in the Modifiers tab and pressing Ctrl+A, or simply pressing Apply in this little drop-down menu. Now we'll be able to modify each side of the car freely. We're going to start modeling from the left side, and for this reason, we'll need to hide all of these images, and I'm going to duplicate my side view reference to position it to the right side of the car. Finally, we're ready to start modeling. First of all, add 2 edge loops that intersect at the center of this circle. Then pick these vertices, use the Circle Loop tool, scale this up while using our selection as a pivot point, and delete this vertex in the center to form a hole. After doing that, I passed some time improving my topology using loop tools, and I suggest you to do the same before passing to the next step. Once your topology is clean, fill this hole back with grid fill, but extrude it backwards and apply bevel weight to those sharp corners. Then simply inset these faces with I and extrude these forward 2 times to follow our desired shape. Now we can pass to the other side of the car where there's going to be the reservoir. Delete this reference since it's no longer needed and add a new reference on the other side where there's going to be the reservoir. Obviously, all of these pictures will be available on my Patreon channel completely for free, so make sure to redeem them by clicking the link down below. Now let's model this. First of all, start outlining the borders of the reservoir, moving your vertices using G twice. Then pick these faces, extrude them backwards, inset them slightly, and extrude forward again, following the same process we followed earlier. Also, instead of applying bevel weights, I decided to use normal bevels to give our car filler a nice look. And to give these corners that sharper look, I had to add some other bevels to them, but unfortunately I had to re-topologize the entire area around them. But in the end, I think it turned out great. And finally, the last thing we're going to do for this video is going to be adding this little rectangle that attaches to the car door. This operation was fairly simple. Just add a loop cut in the middle of this shape, then create a bevel here, and start outlining with the existing geometry that little rectangle. Once you have it, select its borders and press V to separate it from the rest, then simply create some back faces to give the illusion of thickness. And finally, our car's roof is complete. I wanted to thank you guys for watching the video up to this point. In the next one, we're going to cover the back part of the car, so make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet so you won't miss the next episode. Also, make sure to leave a comment to let me know if you like what I'm making. This said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.